Though he's no fan of Me Too, don't confuse Eric Weinstein with Harvey Weinstein. If you have trouble telling the two apart, Harvey is the handsome one. Eric Weinstein's a member of the IDW, the Intellectual Dark Web, also known as the Intellectual Dork Web. He's also a math apologist. Here he is defending math against the formidable king of crying on cue, Terrence Howard.
So, for example, we're going to get into something about multiplication where Terrence has an issue with multiplication. But to the best of my knowledge, you don't have an issue with addition.
I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue with multiplication either.
Well, then why 1 times 1 is what?
1 times 1 should equal 2. And action times an action. If you can show me one place in the universe.
But you just shifted frames.
No. Show me one place in the universe, one natural observable phenomenon where 1 times 1 equals 1, where an action times an action doesn't have a reaction.
So then you just went into some. There's a concept called logomachy, which is arguing over words. And what
you could have said semantics, Eric, but I understand. You have to make things more difficult in order to seem smarter than everyone else in the room. But I'm afraid Terrence is correct. 1 times 1 equals 1. Is that a stutter? What is that? If 1 times 1 equals 1, why not just say 1? Why do you got to have all these extra steps? If I were to take 2 pennies, I could prove to you that 1 plus 1 equals 2. If I were to give you those 2 pennies and prove to me that 1 times 1 equals 1, you couldn't do it. Because math is a scam. I'm sure at some point someone explained 1 times 1 equals 1 to me, and I understood it just long enough to pass whatever test they were forcing me to take. But as soon as that test was over, I flushed it out of my brain. Because who cares?
also
But can you correct what he said about 1 time? What about an action and a reaction?
So I was trying to get to something. Do you have a problem with the way we do addition? I understand
the addition, the subtraction, and division is all right. Beyond the only problems I have is dividing by. You can't divide by 0, but you can multiply by 0. And if division is the inverse operation of multiplication, then you should be able to divide by it. But if you divide by 0, you end up with an infinity. And there was a great system put together by Marco Rodin, the vortexual based math system, where they remove the 0, but it's able to predict all the things necessary. It was 100% precise as a model, but it's been abandoned or it's been relegated to the outskirts.
Don't know that. We do things where sometimes we can divide by 0. We have concepts like the pointed infinity, where you can complete a structure that the original structure can't accommodate a problem, an operation, but you can complete it to a larger system in which that thing does become sensible.
In other words, there's no real logic to this crap, and you just sort of make it up as you go along.
In different arithmetics, you could have an equation like 2 plus 3 equals 1. And so
2 plus 3 equals 1, but 1 times 1 can't equal 1. And 5 plus 3 is 8, except when it isn't, which is when I don't want it to. If you want to make more than $20,000 a year in this country, you have to swallow this garbage. And you have to pay for the pleasure of swallowing this garbage. And the only reason you have to swallow this garbage is to prove to the owners of this country that you are willing to swallow garbage. And that is the sole purpose of math requirements in school. Math is a scam. I remember my algebra teacher. He told the class, he said, if you kids think that you're not going to need algebra in the real world, I got a poster over there on the wall with a list of jobs that require algebra. So I went over to the poster and I looked, and all it said was algebra teacher. Math is a scam. Did you know that it takes 10.5 kajillion fuck tons of math credits to receive an associate's degree? I'm telling you that from personal experience. Now, I don't know if kajillion fuck ton is an actual unit of measurement because I'm bad at math. But I do know I had to explain to my parents, sorry, Mom and Dad, but I'll never get to be an assistant manager at Payless because I can't solve for Y. Math is a scam. Math is the ultimate because I said so. Why does 1 times 1 equal 1? Because I said so. Why do I need to even know that? Because you just do. Math requirements are designed to take your money while training you to follow an arbitrary set of rules without question and without purpose. And why even pick on Terrence Howard in the first place, dude? You remember the IDW. There are plenty of members of the intellectual dork web who have some wackadoo ideas. Why not challenge them? Why not question Sam Harris's misreadings and lies about Islam? Didn't Islam give us algebra? Why don't you stand up for algebra, Eric? Why not challenge Ben Shapiro on his climate change denial, or Jordan Peterson on his his genocidal anti-trans rhetoric? Why not question Joe Rogan on his claim that public schools are letting kids shit in litter boxes if they identify as cats? Ask him what they do about the kids who identify as dogs. Do they let them shit in the lawn, or do the teachers just follow them around with a plastic bag? In fact, you can challenge any of those guys on race and IQ, because every single one of them believes in the long debunked theory that there's a genetic link between race and intelligence. You can go after Joe Rogan right in his studio instead of Terrence Howard. I mean, what's the problem? Are you a big pussy who's obviously wearing a wig, or is it something else?
If you hard code, like Sean Carroll, I think, just had a podcast in which he said something to the effect of, well, the IDW is kind of too interested in race and IQ. I have never been interested in race and IQ. The only time I became interested in race and IQ was when I started hearing there is absolutely no variation between groups in any kind of cognitive endowment. Well, certainly there is in terms of height, the ability to radiate heat, melanin content of the skin, the ability to absorb sunlight. It doesn't pass the smell test that you could be able to say that a priori. It's not a scientific type statement.
Well, I guess that's why he doesn't go after his pals, because he believes in the same dumb shit that they do. And I guess that's why he was very comfortable going after a black guy. Unfortunately, it backfired on him, because he couldn't answer two very supposedly simple questions, which is, why does 1 times 1 equal 1? And why can't you divide by 0? The rest of this conversation was just wall-to-wall gibberish. My previous video was on Beatles fanaticism, and how if you argue with a Beatles fan long enough, they'll eventually try to convince you that there'd be no Mozart without the Beatles. Math nerds have a similar fanaticism in that they demand that you love math as much as they do. But a Beatles fan won't stick a gun to your head and demand that you memorize all the lyrics to Rubber Soul. And it's that coercion I resent. Are you math nerds so lonely that you need me there every semester in your classroom solving your silly little puzzles? You certainly need coercion, because I think even in your heart of hearts you know that math is a scam.